and we'll start here with the actual team outside of the drama with David Carr. Mo, we'll start with you. The biggest takeaways from this season.
Biggest takeaways, I'm worried about Josh McDaniels. And I hate to start there because it's not going to cast a good projection for the next season if I'm worried about the head coach. But 5 blown double-digit leads in the second half. Raiders have that record. So he's got to be able to change the narrative about him as a head coach because it's still out there from his Denver days. There are former players coming out there saying that he's not a head coach. He's a coordinator. And I think he still has a lot to prove in that regard. Now you say, well, new regime comes in, needs their people, needs their players. We'll see what happens. You know, watching the Jets closely, it took a while for Robert Saleh to do that with his team. I remember he had a terrible defense his first year with the Jets. Changing around, the Jets are top 4 in scoring and total defense this year. Now, Robert Saleh didn't have a bad history with another team 10, 12 years ago, but it took him a year to change things around. So I think at least, even if you're like me, you're skeptical of Josh McDaniels, you got to give him a chance to turn it around. The other thing is, and the biggest thing is the quarterback position, what happens there. Now, we talked about David Carr, and I think we're overlooking or glossing over the fact that he may have broken news. Even with the preview of that podcast, he may have broken news saying that Tom Brady is assuredly going to be the quarterback of the Raiders in 2023. And if that is true, I think the Raiders have a chance to bounce back and win double-digit games and go to the playoffs. Now, some fans don't want to hear it because of the Tuck rule. I believe today's the anniversary of the Tuck rule game. But I feel like he still has enough. And me and Scott talked about this. I still think he has enough with a good offensive line and a run game and a decent defense. Doesn't have to be a top 10 defense, a top 12, top 14 defense to take a team to the playoffs. The other thing is the Raiders have to reverse the curse of poor defense. They've had a poor defense for 2 decades. Even if Tom Brady comes in there, a rookie, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones, whoever it is, that quarterback is going to need support on the other side of the ball because you're not going to go far with the top 25, with a 25th ranked, 26th ranked scoring defense. They need to pour a lot of investments on that side of the ball.
And Scott, really quick before I get your biggest takeaway, I do want to ask you, so it was just announced yesterday, Patrick Graham will be coaching the national team in the Senior Bowl. Obviously, no better position to get a look at all this draft class and some of the defensive help. Are you disappointed that he's coming back another year? Would you have gotten rid of him if you were Dave Ziegler? How do you feel about Patrick Graham in this defense heading into next year?
Look, Patrick Graham takes a lot of heat. I understand why. The defense is terrible. Okay, you understand that. But listen, it's sort of like if I said, hey, Adrian, I'm going to hire you to do a radio show, but you're going to have to yell out of the parking lot and nobody will be able to hear you except your voice. We can't transmit you over the air. It wouldn't be fair to evaluate you on your ability to get listeners because you didn't have the tools to do the job. I think with Patrick Graham, you have to give him another year because he didn't have any talent. They didn't upgrade significantly. They thought they were upgrading, of course, at end, but they didn't get production like they wanted to, and they were very young on the back end. They didn't perform well. They went out, they got Rocky Sin. They had injuries there. So listen, I think the whole coaching staff's going to be on notice, but I do think that Patrick Graham, the jury's still out on him. We'll have to see. He doesn't have a ton of experience, as Mo always talks about on our show. So we'll have to see, given an influx of talent, which I think he'll get a massive influx of talent. We'll have to see what happens with him coming in 2023.
And as far as your biggest takeaway this season or biggest takeaways, what would that be for you?
Well, I agree with Mo on the coaching. Look, I've been saying for months that Josh McDaniels has been committing coaching malpractice. And I think Mo alluded to the 5 blown leads. That goes to that. I think even the story and the kind of regression of Derek Carr. Yes, Derek Carr owns that, but it's also a little bit on coaching, the play calling and things like that. For whatever reason, they did not click. And Josh McDaniels went into that relationship loving Derek Carr. So something happened. They stopped having a good marriage, if you will, and it went south. And so going into the season, Adrian, he's on the hot seat game 1. I mean, he has to be, right? Because of what happened last year. And my guess is I'm going to give Dave Ziegler the benefit of the doubt and say he's going to have a good draft. He's going to sign some big money free agents because he's got a ton of cap space. Okay. So if he does that, I think then that's the biggest takeaway I had was the coaching just being very disappointing as well, especially on offense and what they were unable to do. Secondarily, here's a different one for you. I understand why it's happening, but one of the big takeaways here is the Raiders don't play well at home. They just, yes, they were 6-11, but they don't play well at home. They haven't over 2 years since they've had fans at Allegiant Stadium. We're seeing this year, we saw a lot more visiting fans because the Raiders were struggling again and people were frustrated. And so you're going to see that, as you know, Adrian, going to the hockey games there, everything, even the WNBA games, you're going to have people come in from out of town. So you're always going to have a higher percentage.
A vacation spot for every team.
You're going to have a higher percentage of visiting fans every game. And that's fine. If you keep it to 20%, maybe 30% on a big game, that's cool. No big deal. We love them coming to Las Vegas, spend your money, keep the economy moving, and all the hardworking people there in the city. But there's no home field advantage for the Raiders on the field either. Even last year when they were a borderline, but still made it into the playoffs, they have not won at home. And so that's one of my big takeaways is they need to establish that when someone comes into Allegiant Stadium, even if they're a team better than you, you're going to give them holy hell. Even if you lose the game, it's going to be tough and you're going to leave bloodied, right? So they need to establish that. So that was one of my other takeaways, aside from the coaching and obviously the lack of some performance from key players.
That's a good take and a good observation. I just don't know what they could do because of everyone, like we've said, that they look at the schedule and they see Las Vegas, especially if you're in the East Coast and it's later in the season. Hey, this is going to be the one trip we make, but definitely something that they're going to have to battle for here in the future, unless they start winning.
Real quick, that's what I was going to say. Mo and I have the cure. It's called winning.
This is true. True.
Or I'll tell you another one. The 2 words, Tom Brady, will bring people in and bring Raider fans. Even though a lot of Raider fans say they hate him because of the Tuck rule and all that jazz, which was 20 years ago. But nonetheless, if Tom Brady comes there, trust me, people will want to go.
I love that you brought up jazz with the fedora hat. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mo.
There's a point to that. And people love to hate watch. And then we know this, Scott, right? Yeah. There are some people who can't stand us, but they follow us on Twitter and they message us all the time. So people say, I can't stand Tom Brady. Let me go watch Tom Brady play the Buccaneers. Let me go watch Tom Brady play the Kansas City Chiefs. They'll come and watch anyway, because even if they love him or hate him, the fact is you're coming to watch him.